This is Mr. Hanna. Welcome to What the Format. Today we're going to go over another example of a problem with a triangle. If you watched the video before where there was perimeter, you'll see it's the exact same triangle with the exact same expressions for the sides and the height. Instead of perimeter, however, I'm giving you the area. Okay. Now in this case, they might simply just ask solve for x. Remember in the last one, once you had x, you weren't done. You had to use that to find the height. They will vary that, especially in tests. Sometimes they'll make you just solve for x. Other times they'll have you take a step further. When do you know what to do? You're asking. Well, the problem will tell you. This is part of the issue is you just need to learn how to follow and do what the problem tells you. Quick question. Do you know what the formula for an area of a triangle is? I'm pausing because I'm hoping you're thinking about it. Now, hopefully some of you knew right away what it is. If you don't, obviously you can see where you're stuck. You can't go forward on the problem. Okay? And area formula of a triangle is really something you should have learned back in fourth, fifth, or even sixth grade. Should have been reinforced a few times. Question is, was it? I'm finding a lot of students never really learned it, but even then if they did, second is, do you remember it? Too much forgetting. You can see where that's a problem, hopefully. Now, hopefully you're awake now and you're like, oh, I really need to pay more attention to these things. I know the area formula. The area formula is 1/2 the base times the height. But now the second problem, I got four expressions here. Which ones do I use? You use the wrong ones, you're gonna get the wrong answer. What's the base and what's the height? A lot of students will say x plus 6 is the base. Why? They're conditioned that the bottom side is the base. Well, remember, that's only true if the height they give you is perpendicular to that. They didn't give you that height. They gave you this height. That makes this the height, that makes this the base. So this is my B and that's my H. You have to know that. They're not going to label that for you. They're going to expect you to know that. And they're going to throw that little wrinkle in. Now, the area is 54, but I'm just going to write the area. It equals 1/2 what? Well, I've got x plus 5 is my base, x plus 2 is my height, and that's going to equal what? 54. Now, they love this kind of problem because now it's introduced something to you. It's introduced a fraction, and it's introduced distributive property. Two things I see students struggle with a lot. Okay, well, first thing, you don't need to deal with the 1/2. Well, why not, Mr. Hanna? There it is, it's saying 1/2 times. Okay, if you don't want to multiply something by 1/2, how do you get rid of multiplying by half? Well, you multiply by 2. When you get rid of a fraction by multiplying by its reciprocal, the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2/1. What do the 2 and the 1's do? They cancel, they go to 1. Now there's a 1 in front of here. And recall that 1 times anything is itself. So now you just have to deal with that. But of course, the great rule in algebra, what I do to one side, I do to the other. Okay, so now you're left with x plus 5 times x plus 2 equals 108. Notice I haven't put the units in here. Those come later at the end when you're actually trying to find a dimension, unless of course you're just trying to find x and the unit won't even matter at all. Something to be aware of. Now, hopefully you know how to distribute here. X times x. I like to draw arrows if I'm having trouble seeing it. I have 2 multiplications there, and anytime you do a variable times itself, it's that variable squared. Hopefully you know that. Plus 2x. Now, I've done the x times both of those, so now I have to come and do the 5. So I've got the 5 times the x. I usually like to write it here. And then I got the 5 times the 2, which is plus 10. Notice by doing it this way, I've lined up my like terms. The 2x and 5x are the only terms that I can combine. That means this stays as x squared. That goes to 7x. That's 10, and that's equal to 108. Now, unlike linear equations, where I just want to try to get the variables on one side and the numbers on the others, with quadratics, I want everything on the same side. So I have to bring this 108 over, something a lot of students will sometimes miss. And that's going to give me x squared plus 7x minus 98 equals 0. Now you got a couple choices. You can solve this with the quadratic formula. You can solve it by factoring, if it factors. I'm going to go with the factoring route. That's my preferred method when the numbers are kind of small, okay? And then if it doesn't factor, I will just go to the quadratic formula then. I have recommended, and sometimes do recommend, that if you're having trouble with factoring, especially if you're in a test situation, don't worry about that at the time. Just do the quadratic formula, because that's the one method that works all the time. However, there are times you do need to factor. So if you're not in a testing situation or getting ready for a testing situation, and you're not trying to take a shortcut there just to get by the test, you want to know how to factor this. So 98 factors to 1 in 98. That's not it. 2 in 49. I know 3 doesn't go in there. 4 doesn't go in there. 5 doesn't go in there. Let's see. I should have what? 7 and 14. But 14 minus 7 is 5, so I missed one somewhere. What of these has a difference of 7? Now, you can see this is the difficulty with factoring. Sometimes you run into that. Okay, I'm doing this in my head real quick, right? I tried 6, 6 doesn't go into it. I tried 5, 5 doesn't go into it. So maybe at this point it doesn't factor, because 7 times 14 is 98. Oh, I was thinking 14 and 9, because I was stuck on 108, 9 times 12. See what happens to your brain sometimes? Now I want you to see that. I want you to see that sometimes the numbers get mixed up in your head. This is why you have to have a system or a process to go through the problem, so that when you're going through, you don't make those mistakes. This is where I see a lot of students mess up. They have a preconceived notion. Okay, I tried 3, 4, 5 to get to 7. I needed to be more careful and check that 14 minus 7 is 7. My brain was thinking 12 and 9, so I had, in my mind, I had 14 and 9 there. I also had a 9 sitting right there. This is what you have to be aware of. Sometimes your brain doesn't see the problem right. You have to be able to walk it through and help it. This is why you learning to think and practice thinking through problems is so important, so that you learn to figure out where you get stuck and how to get past it. So I know 14 and 7 the answers. That's plus 7. So now I'm going to go x plus 14 and x minus 7, and I'm going to put those equal to 0. Now, the zero product property says when you multiply any numbers, it could be 2 or more, so up to 10 numbers, if the product is 0, that means 1 or more of those numbers have to be 0. So that means either this has to be 0 or this has to be 0. So what does that give me? Well, I either set x plus 14 equal to 0, which then I do minus 14, x equals negative 14, but now I can see that's a problem. Negative 14 plus 7 is negative. You can't in a real life problem. Now, algebra-wise, negative 14 is a fine answer. But if I'm applying it to this geometry problem, negative 14 doesn't work because it gives me a negative side. So we don't want that. So that leaves me with x minus 7. So I come over here and I get x minus 7 equals 0. When I add the 7 to both sides, I get x equals 7. And if that's what they're asking me for, I'm done. Now, please rewind and go back to where I almost made a mistake here, where I was getting myself caught. Okay? Instead of panicking, instead of going, whoa, I don't know what the answer is, I slowed down, I stopped, and I went back through it and said, okay, what am I missing? I'm missing something here. That will happen to the brain. The bigger the problem, the more stress there is. Sometimes you have to learn to help it. It's the same reason if you're doing a sport or playing a musical instrument, you practice. Why? So that when you run into trouble, you can get out of it. You can recognize, wait a minute, my brain's, let me start over, let me go back, rethink through this. Okay? Students, from what I'm seeing, most students just don't have that ability anymore. If the answer doesn't present itself right away, they just don't know what to do. Hopefully you saw that I didn't panic, that I recognized that my brain saw this wrong and I corrected it. So I still factored it right. I still got the answer. It didn't affect the problem. Now, it was a little blip, okay? And I have to now go back and say, okay, why did I let that 9 stick in my head? Well, I knew 9 times 12 is 108. That's kind of what I was thinking, right? Because 7 plus 5 is 12, 7 plus 2 is 9. See, 9 times 12, I had that in my brain. Why did I have that in my brain? Well, I had to pick what x was to know what this was going to be. So since I designed the problem, I had certain numbers stuck in my head, and then it almost cost me here. You'll have the same thing happen to you. Numbers from another problem or something like that will stick in your head, okay? This is, again, why you need to learn. You have to practice thinking through problems. Catch where you're going to make mistakes. Watch where you run into moments of difficulty and have a way to get through them so you can still find the answer, okay? Higher level math problems, I've had lots of problems where I started one way, made some mistakes, had to go back, fix some things. I'm like, oh, that's what I missed. It's not uncommon. And if you talk to students that do calculus problems and trig problems, they'll say the same thing, that they started a problem one way and they realized they made a mistake and they had to go back and redo it. But they don't give up and they just keep pushing through it. Hopefully my example showed you, you can see what could happen and how you get past that. Hopefully this helped you. You got a perimeter, now an area example. You now recognize the different skills you have to have, how they all come together in a single problem. Okay, there's infinite more like this. That's why I say if you're having a problem with something, if you email me, I do a video on it. Maybe that's the one thing that you were struggling with and it clicks then. Because it could have been the distributed property. It could have been you didn't ever know how to get out of the half. Maybe it was the factor pairing. Who knows? Lots of things going on here. Maybe you forgot the formulas. Math is not easy. You have to train your brain. You have to go through it a step at a time. You have to get comfortable with it. Hopefully, I'm helping with that. Anyway, this has been What the Format. Thank you for watching. Happy mathing.